You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. To begin, it is worth recapping the three pillars that make logs valuable in practice: schema, enrichment, and integrity. A schema ensures that logs across diverse sources share a consistent structure so that analysts can query and compare them reliably. Enrichment adds business and contextual metadata, such as asset criticality, system owner, or environment tags that make raw events meaningful. Integrity protections guarantee that logs have not been altered, giving analysts confidence they are examining authentic evidence. Together, these pillars transform logs from unstructured noise into structured intelligence. Without schema, logs are inconsistent. Without enrichment, they lack meaning. Without integrity, they cannot be trusted. For learners, it helps to think of logs like financial records. The schema is the accounting format, enrichment is the annotations explaining transactions, and integrity is the audit trail. Without all three, the records would be confusing or unusable. Logs provide true value only when these principles are applied consistently. Detection pattern development is one of the most direct applications of logs. By analyzing historical events, teams can develop signatures that match known malicious activity, sequences that identify stepwise attack chains, and statistical baselines that highlight deviations from normal behavior. For example, a signature might detect a known PowerShell command used by attackers. A sequence could flag multiple failed logins followed by a successful one, suggesting brute force. A baseline might learn typical login times for a user and alert when they suddenly authenticate at unusual hours. Each detection pattern type has its strengths. Signatures are precise but narrow, sequences highlight tactics, and baselines uncover anomalies. For learners, this is like diagnosing illness. A signature is a specific symptom, a sequence is a pattern of progression, and a baseline deviation is when something feels off even if no single symptom is decisive. Logs enable all three, supporting rich detection strategies. Multi-source correlation is where logs truly shine. Instead of analyzing authentication logs, network logs, or process logs in isolation, analysts combine them to uncover sophisticated attacker activity. For instance, correlating failed authentication attempts with firewall logs showing unusual inbound traffic and process creation logs launching suspicious binaries paints a full picture of a brute force compromise. Without correlation, each source might look benign, failed logins are common. Inbound traffic happens all the time, and process launches occur constantly. But together, the pattern stands out as clearly malicious. For learners, think of this like piecing together multiple eyewitness accounts of a crime. Each witness saw something small, but only by combining stories does the full sequence emerge. Multi-source correlation transforms logs from isolated fragments into powerful narratives of attacker behavior. Another strength of logs is their ability to construct timelines of attacker activity and system behavior. By aligning events chronologically across systems, analysts can reconstruct what happened, when it started, and how it progressed. For example, logs may show a phishing email delivered at 9 a.m., a user clicking the attachment at 9:03, a process launching at 9:05, and lateral movement beginning at 9:10. Timelines are critical for incident response and forensic analysis because they provide the narrative structure needed to understand scope and impact. For learners, think of this like replaying a sports match in sequence. Watching isolated plays tells you little, but following the full timeline reveals strategy, errors, and turning points. Log-based timelines give defenders the same clarity in the aftermath of incidents. Alert prioritization becomes significantly more effective when combined with enrichment. Instead of treating all alerts equally, systems can rank them based on asset criticality, business owner, and even time of day context. For example, a failed login attempt on a test server after hours may rank low, while the same activity on a production finance server during a compliance audit ranks high. Enrichment ensures alerts are triaged with business impact in mind. not just technical severity. This prioritization reduces noise, improves analyst focus, and ensures high-value alerts are addressed first. For learners, imagine smoke detectors in different rooms. An alarm in a storage closet may matter less than an alarm in a hospital ward. Prioritization ensures attention goes where it matters most, and enrichment supplies the context needed to make that distinction. Anomaly detection approaches expand detection beyond fixed signatures. Simple thresholding sets static limits, such as flagging when failed logins exceed 10 per minute. Statistical models improve this by comparing against historical baselines, such as noticing when a user logs in from 3 new countries in one day. Machine learning models take this further, detecting subtle deviations across multiple variables simultaneously. Each method carries trade-offs. Thresholds are simple but noisy, baselines adapt but require history, and machine learning is powerful but opaque. For learners, think of these as security guards with different strategies. One counts how many people enter per minute, another knows the usual crowd size and flags deviations, while the third notices subtle patterns in behavior. Logs enable all 3 approaches, giving organizations a spectrum of tools to detect anomalies efficiently. Indicators of compromise, or IOCs, are one-way logs support detection, but behavior-based indicators often provide more lasting value. IOCs include known bad domains, IPs, or file hashes. These are useful for catching specific threats but can be evaded easily by attackers who change infrastructure. Behavior-based indicators look for suspicious actions, such as credential use from impossible locations or scripts running outside expected processes. These behaviors are harder for attackers to mask because they reflect tactics rather than static details. For learners, this is like policing based on fingerprints versus suspicious behavior. Fingerprints tie to one individual, but only if you have them on file, while behavior like casing a store is suspicious regardless of who does it. Logs support both IOC-based and behavior-based detection, but the latter often provides more resilience. Retained historical logs are invaluable for retroactive hunting and reanalysis. When new detection rules or threat intelligence become available, analysts can query past logs to see if attackers were active before alerts existed. For example, if a new IOC is published for malware, historical logs may show it ran in your environment 3 months earlier. Retroactive analysis provides insight into dwell time, missed detections, and evolving attacker tactics. Without long-term logs, organizations lose the ability to validate whether they were affected by emerging threats. For learners, this is like rechecking old CCTV footage after learning a suspect's appearance. Even if no one noticed at the time, the video may reveal their presence days or weeks earlier. Historical logs keep this door open for security teams. Threat intelligence enrichment adds another layer of value by tagging logs with indicators from external feeds. Suspicious IPs, domains, and file hashes can be automatically matched against incoming logs, adding context for analysts. Instead of staring at a raw IP address, enrichment flags it as linked to a known botnet or ransomware campaign. This helps analysts prioritize alerts and adds attribution context to incidents. However, feeds must be curated to avoid false positives. For learners, think of this like law enforcement databases. A license plate by itself means little, but if it is flagged as stolen or linked to criminal activity, it deserves immediate attention. Threat intelligence transforms raw events into meaningful signals, provided it is integrated responsibly into the logging pipeline. Documenting detection logic and tuning history ensures future teams understand not just what rules exist, but why they were written and how they evolved. Every detection rule should be documented with its purpose, data sources, enrichment dependencies, and notes about false positives. Tuning history explains what adjustments were made to reduce noise and what trade-offs were considered. Without this documentation, new analysts may disable or rewrite rules without realizing their importance. For learners, this is like recipe notes in a kitchen. The base recipe might work, but notes about adjusting for oven quirks or ingredient substitutions preserve valuable context. Documented detection logic ensures continuity, accountability, and efficiency as teams change over time. Automation opportunities abound in log-driven environments, reducing the manual burden on analysts. Automation can enrich logs automatically with threat intelligence or asset tags, generate tickets when high-confidence alerts fire, and perform initial triage steps like checking for repeated patterns. In some cases, automation can even trigger containment, such as disabling accounts after confirmed brute force attempts. The key is to reserve automation for high-confidence scenarios where risk of error is low. For learners, this is like automated sprinklers. They activate when smoke is certain, preventing escalation, but they don't replace firefighters for nuanced judgment. Similarly, log automation handles the basics quickly, giving humans more time to investigate complex threats. A practical exercise is to develop one correlated detection rule that combines failed authentication spikes with unusual process creation on the same host. Start by defining thresholds for failed logins, then add process creation logs to detect suspicious binaries launching immediately afterward. Tune the rule by excluding known administrative scripts or expected test accounts to reduce false positives. Document the rule with its logic, tuning history, and rationale. This hands-on activity shows how logs from different sources can be combined into meaningful detections and how tuning ensures rules remain actionable. For learners, it is like designing a burglar alarm that only triggers when both a door is forced and motion is detected inside. The combination increases confidence, reducing noise while focusing on genuine threats. Dashboards and visualizations are powerful tools for surfacing trends and anomalies hidden within massive log repositories. Raw logs by themselves are difficult to interpret at scale, but when translated into graphs, heat maps, or time series charts, patterns become visible almost instantly. For example, a spike in failed login attempts may stand out clearly when plotted over time, while clusters of network connections to unusual ports might emerge on a heat map. Dashboards also allow analysts to monitor key metrics in near real time, providing situational awareness across the environment. For learners, think of this as the difference between staring at spreadsheets of numbers and looking at a stock market chart. The raw data is the same, but visualization reveals the story. In security operations, well-designed dashboards help analysts detect suspicious behaviors faster and allocate attention to where it matters most. Effective search and query practices are equally important, allowing analysts to pivot quickly from an alert to a full investigation. When an alert fires, the ability to query surrounding logs before and after the event, across related systems, and linked by shared fields, determines whether the investigation uncovers root cause or stalls. Best practices include using normalized fields consistently, applying time filters to narrow results, and pivoting from one indicator to related logs, such as from a suspicious IP, to all processes it touched. Query efficiency also matters, since poorly structured searches can waste time and delay investigations. For learners, think of this like detective work. An investigator doesn't just look at the crime scene. They interview witnesses, check phone records, and review nearby camera footage. Querying in log analysis mirrors this process, pulling in related evidence until the full picture emerges. Retention strategies for hunting rely on preserving sufficient log fidelity for lookback windows defined by the organization's threat model. Some adversaries dwell in networks for weeks or months before detection, making short retention periods a liability. If logs are purged after 30 days, but the attacker has been active for 90, investigations will lack critical evidence. Retention strategies should be driven by both compliance obligations and the organization's realistic threat landscape. High-value assets or regulated industries may require years of retention, while less sensitive environments may accept shorter windows. For learners, think of this like keeping medical records. If you only keep records for a month, you can't diagnose chronic conditions. Security hunting requires enough historical context to uncover long-term patterns, so retention decisions must be made with adversary timelines in mind. Replaying historical logs in test environments is a valuable technique for validating new detection rules. When analysts design new signatures or correlation logic, running them against historical logs allows tuning before production deployment. This ensures rules detect true threats while minimizing false positives. Replay testing also provides assurance that new rules won't overwhelm analysts with noise once live. For example, a new brute force detection can be tested against 6 months of login data to see how often it triggers and whether those events were benign. For learners, think of this like a dress rehearsal before a performance. You test scripts, pacing, and cues before the real audience arrives. In security, replaying logs allows new rules to be tested safely and realistically before they affect operations. Integrating logs with SOAR platforms extends the value of detection by automating enrichment and safe containment. When a high-confidence alert fires, a SOAR playbook might enrich the alert with threat intelligence, add asset context, and even disable accounts or isolate endpoints if risk thresholds are met. Automation reduces analyst workload and speeds response, but only when detections are precise enough to justify it. For learners, this is like coupling smoke detectors to sprinklers. When the detector is certain, sprinklers activate automatically, stopping the fire quickly. However, if the detectors are too sensitive, sprinklers may trigger unnecessarily, causing damage. Logs provide the raw material for SOAR automation, but precision in detection is critical to avoid unwanted consequences. Privacy-aware logging practices must balance investigative needs with user protections. Logs often contain personal identifiers, email contents, or behavioral data that can be sensitive under privacy regulations. Organizations must apply minimization at ingestion, redaction where feasible, and access controls during analysis. Privacy is not about reducing visibility blindly, it's about retaining security value while stripping unnecessary personal data. For example, usernames might be hashed until an investigation requires unmasking. This preserves anonymity during routine monitoring while still allowing accountability when necessary. For learners, think of this like blurring faces in CCTV footage. The footage still shows activity, but personal identities remain hidden until lawfully required. Privacy-aware logging builds trust, ensuring that security practices comply with both ethical standards and legal mandates. Continuous tuning cycles are essential for keeping detection rules effective over time. Attackers adapt, systems evolve, and what once was an effective rule may drift into irrelevance. Continuous tuning involves monitoring detection performance, reviewing false positives, and adjusting thresholds or correlation logic. Analysts should document why changes were made and revisit rules periodically to confirm effectiveness. Without this cycle, logging systems either become too noisy, overwhelming analysts, or too quiet, missing real threats. For learners, think of this like maintaining a musical instrument. Even the finest violin must be tuned regularly to produce clear sound. Detection logic works the same way. Constant adjustment keeps it sharp, reliable, and in harmony with evolving environments. Alert fatigue is a real problem in many organizations, and logs play a major role in either worsening or reducing it. Grouping related alerts into single cases, applying suppression windows to prevent repeat notifications, and using score thresholds to prioritize alerts are all strategies that help mitigate fatigue. If every log anomaly creates an alert, analysts quickly become overwhelmed, and genuine threats may be overlooked. For learners, think of this like emergency alarms in a building. If alarms go off every few minutes for minor issues, residents start ignoring them. Only by grouping, suppressing, and prioritizing do alarms regain their trust. Log-driven alert pipelines must be tuned to minimize fatigue, while ensuring critical threats always rise to the top. Metrics provide an objective way to evaluate the performance of log-based detection. Useful measures include signal-to-noise ratio, which shows the balance of true positives versus false positives. Time to detect, which measures how quickly suspicious activity is identified. And investigation time, which indicates how efficiently analysts can resolve alerts. Tracking these metrics over time shows whether tuning efforts and schema improvements are paying off. Without metrics, teams operate blindly, unsure whether changes help or harm. For learners, think of this like athletic training. Athletes track speed, strength, and accuracy to measure progress. Similarly, security teams must measure detection metrics to confirm their log pipelines deliver real, sustained improvements in performance and visibility. Collaborative playbooks are essential to ensure that when log-detected alerts fire, analysts know exactly what triage steps to take. Playbooks map alerts to evidence sources, guiding analysts through structured investigation. For example, a brute force alert might direct analysts to check identity logs, process creation, and firewall logs in sequence. Playbooks reduce variability between analysts and speed up response by codifying best practices. They also serve as training tools for new staff. For learners, this is like a recipe in a kitchen. Chefs can improvise, but recipes ensure consistency, efficiency, and quality across cooks. Playbooks turn log alerts into actionable, repeatable investigations that drive consistent outcomes. Every time a new log source is onboarded, it must pass an acceptance test. This test verifies schema alignment, timestamp accuracy, enrichment tags, and ingestion health. Without such checks, new sources may introduce inconsistent fields, unsynchronized clocks, or broken pipelines that undermine investigations. Acceptance testing also ensures owners are identified, documentation updated, and analysts informed of the new source's value. For learners, think of this like quality checks in manufacturing. Every new component must be inspected before entering the assembly line, or the final product suffers. Log onboarding works the same way. Acceptance testing ensures integrity and consistency before logs contribute to security operations. Ultimately, logs are the fuel that powers detection and investigation, but only when quality ingestion, enrichment, schema design, and continuous tuning are applied. Organizations that treat logs as mere storage artifacts miss their true value. Logs must be curated, correlated, and contextualized to become the foundation for reliable security operations. For learners, the takeaway is clear. Logs are not just a byproduct of systems, they are active assets. When designed and managed intentionally, they reduce detection times, improve investigation accuracy, and support compliance and forensics. Good logging is not accidental, it is engineered. And in modern cybersecurity, engineered logging is one of the most powerful defensive capabilities an organization can build. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.